My name is Harper Lane. I'm 29. And last Christmas Eve was the night I realized two things at the exact same time. My dad didn't see me as family anymore. The universe has a wicked sense of humor when karma decides it's time to clock in. Because while he was busy throwing my Christmas gifts into the snow like he was taking out the trash, screaming about how I'd failed this family, what he didn't know, what no one in that house knew, was that the very floor he was standing on belonged to me. As in legally, as in my name on the deed belonged. And that part, I was about 3 seconds away from revealing it. But let me back up before we get to the fireworks show. Before we dive deeper into this madness, do me a quick favor. If you love stories filled with family drama, satisfying revenge, and plot twists that make your jaw drop, hit that subscribe button and drop where you're watching from. I love knowing which time zone is sipping hot chocolate while listening to my chaos. Now let's rewind. Growing up, Christmas used to be my favorite holiday back when we still pretended to like each other. Back when my dad used to dress up as Santa and hand me cheap dollar store toys while giving my older brother, Ethan, the expensive stuff because he's a boy and boys need more. Yeah, that was the tone of our family. My mom passed away when I was 9, and my dad never really recovered. Or maybe he did, he just recovered into someone different, harder, meaner, more obsessed with appearances and what the neighbors thought. If someone had told him that being an emotionally decent parent would earn him community respect, he might have tried it. But not, he preferred the shallow route. Fancy house, expensive car, perfect holidays, perfect children. And I, according to him, had messed up the formula. See, Ethan took the traditional Lane family route. Business school, frat boy life, and eventually joining Dad's small construction company. Ethan was the golden son, the heir, the pride and joy. I was the glitch in the system. I chose social work. Yep, social work. Not glamorous. Not high-paying, not prestigious. But meaningful, necessary, human. Dad hated that word, human.
He said I threw away my potential. He said I was embarrassing our last name. He said I was choosing poverty on purpose. So,
when I decided to move out at 22 and never moved back, he liked to say I abandoned the family. What he meant was I stopped letting him control me. Fast forward to last year, Ethan got married. Dad remodeled the entire house for the new family legacy, and I got more distant every month. I still came to birthdays and holidays because deep down I kept hoping things would get better. That maybe the older we got, the more we'd soften. That maybe grief would eventually unite instead of divide us. Spoiler alert, it didn't. December 24th, 5:02 p.m., I walked up the icy driveway of the Lane household, carrying the gifts I'd saved up for weeks to buy. I wasn't loaded, but I'd put thought into every one. For Dad, a custom-made watch band engraved with our family's initials. For Ethan and his wife, a premium car seat for my newborn niece. For everyone else, simple, meaningful things I could afford. The snow was falling lightly and the windows glowed warm. Christmas music drifted out the door as I knocked. My stepmother, Diane, opened the door with a tight smile, one of those smiles people use when they're trying to hide something sharper underneath. "Oh, Harper, you actually came, Yeah," I said, brushing snow off my coat.
it's Christmas.
"Right," she stepped aside. "Take your shoes off. The carpet is new." Inside, the living room was buzzing with laughter and wine glasses clinking. Ethan lifted his chin at me in that way he does when he wants to seem friendly without actually being friendly. Dad sat in his usual spot, the armchair he called his throne, wearing a thick holiday sweater and a satisfaction that always made my stomach tighten. "Well, look who finally showed up," he announced loudly, making sure everyone heard. "Harper the Wanderer," a couple relatives chuckled. My cheeks burned. "Hi, Dad," I said softly. He didn't reply. He never replied to softness. I set the gifts under the tree, and that's when it started. Dad stood, sauntered over, looked down at the presents, then at me. "These yours?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, confused. He nudged one with his foot like he was inspecting garbage. "Why bother?" he asked. "You barely show up. You don't contribute. What's the point of pretending you care?" My stomach dropped. "Dad, I do care." "Well," he said loudly, We don't need charity. And we don't need pity presents. The room went quiet. I swallowed hard. They aren't pity. He cut me off, grabbed the first box and walked toward the door. And before I could react, he opened it and threw my gifts straight into the snow. The first. Then the second. Then the third. The night hadn't even started. But trust me, it was about to get a whole lot crazier. I stood there frozen literally and emotionally as Dad kept hurling my gifts into the snow like he was competing in some Olympic sport for cruelty. Each box hit the ground with a dull thud, sinking into the white powder before I even had time to blink. Inside, everyone watched, some shocked, some entertained. Some pretending to be shocked but absolutely entertained. Classic Lane Christmas. Dad, stop. I finally shouted, stepping toward the doorway, the cold air biting through my coat. What is wrong with you?
He turned, jaw tight, eyes blazing in that self-righteous rage he saved just for me. What's wrong with me?
What's wrong with you, Harper? You think you can disappear for months and suddenly show up playing Santa? Disappear. Right, that's what he called living my life outside his shadow. Dad, I work. Oh, please, he snapped, waving me off. You work at a nonprofit, Harper, not a real job. Not a career. You scrape by and expect us to applaud you for being irresponsible? My breath hitched. Every word was a slap. I felt 12 again. Dad, I help people for a living. Yeah? He shot back. Well, maybe start helping your own family instead of strangers. You mean help the family business, I corrected softly. He smirked. Finally, you're saying something useful. You're almost 30, Harper. Ethan can't run the company alone forever. The air went still. A few relatives straightened up, suddenly invested in this conversation. Lane construction meant money, inheritance, legacy. Things I never cared about but everyone else drooled over. Dad, I said carefully, I'm not joining the business. His nostrils flared. Then what use are you to this family? There it was, the truth. The rot he carried in his chest for years. Diane touched his arm gently. Richard, maybe let's just... He yanked his arm away. No, I'm sick of tiptoeing around her decisions. She needs to hear it. Ethan cleared his throat. Dad, maybe calm down. Oh, shut it, Ethan, Dad barked. You're the one picking up the slack every time she embarrasses us. Embarrasses us. He said it like I was some stain he couldn't scrub out. I glanced at Ethan. He didn't defend me. He never does. He simply stared at the floor, hands tucked in his pockets, choosing silence the way he always chose comfort over courage. Dad, I whispered, voice cracking despite my best effort to hold it together. I didn't come here to fight. He leaned in close, lowering his voice so only I could hear. Then why come at all? Those 5 words hit harder than the cold wind. He pulled away and announced dramatically to the room, since Harper doesn't want to be Elaine, she can take her gifts and leave. I didn't say that. Oh, please, he scoffed. You left us a long time ago. Tonight just proves it. I felt something snap in my chest, not anger, not sadness, something deeper, something old. A tiredness, a bone-deep exhaustion from years of trying to be enough for a man who had already decided I wasn't. Diane stepped between us. Okay, enough. It's Christmas. Harper, sweetie, why don't you just sit at the kids' table? There's an extra seat near the back. The kids' table. At 29 years old. After my dad just yeeted my gifts into a snowbank. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I straightened up, swallowing the tremor in my throat. I'll get my things. Ethan followed me quietly to the porch where my presents were scattered across the ground like forgotten debris. Snowflakes landed on the wet wrapping paper, melting into little silver freckles. Harper, he said softly, Dad's just stressed. You know how he gets? I stared at him. Ethan, he threw my gifts into the snow. I know, he whispered, rubbing the back of his neck. It looked bad. But he didn't mean, he meant every word. I knelt, picking up a soggy box. The watch band, ruined, and you let him... He flinched, but didn't deny it.
Harper, he said again. Dad's trying to keep the family together. You've always been... different.
Kiefer.
There it was again, the polite version of disappointment. Ethan, I said slowly, do you honestly think Dad cares about family? Or do you think he cares about control? He opened his mouth, then shut it. His silence was answer enough. It was then I realized something important. Ethan wasn't my enemy. He was just another one of Dad's victims, only he was too deep in to notice. I gathered the last ruined box and stood, brushing snow from my gloves. I'm leaving, I said quietly. Tell Dad. Actually, don't tell him anything. Ethan hesitated. Harper, wait, there's something you should know. I turned slowly. He looked uneasy. Dad's been talking about selling the house. I blinked. This house? He nodded. Yeah, he said the market's good and he wants to cash out. My heart stopped. Because I knew something Ethan didn't. Dad couldn't sell this house. It wasn't his, it was mine. And I was about to remind everyone of that in a way they'd never forget. The words Dad's selling the house followed me down the frozen driveway like ghosts tugging at my coat. Ethan stood in the doorway watching me leave, arms wrapped around himself like he suddenly realized how cold it was outside and in that house. My boots crunched across the snow as I reached my car. I tossed the ruined presents into the back seat, wiped the melting snow off my cheeks, and sat there gripping the steering wheel while my breath fogged the glass. Dad, selling the house. He really thought he owned it. He really believed he controlled everything. And that was the part that stung the most, not the yelling, not the humiliation in front of the entire family, not even the porch exile. No, it was the fact Dad had rewritten the story in his head so many times that he now genuinely believed his lies. But I remembered the truth, every line of it. I started the engine, turned on the heat, and just sat there letting my hands thaw. Snowflakes drifted past the windshield like tiny pieces of ash. For a moment, I thought about just driving away, disappearing for the night, getting a motel room somewhere, or maybe crashing at my friend Maya's place. But something wouldn't let me leave. Not yet. I opened my phone, scrolled through my documents folder, and there it was, a PDF I hadn't looked at since last year. Property title transfer Harper Lane, my name. My house signed legally, stamped by the county recorder's office. Filed under the Lane Estate Trust, with me listed as the sole beneficiary. Dad had signed that deed himself 5 years ago after his first heart scare back when he still believed I would take care of him someday. Back before he decided I wasn't useful enough. I stared at the document as the heaters blasted warm air around me. My hands stopped shaking, my vision sharpened. Something inside me reassembled itself piece by piece into something stronger than the hurt and humiliation. A plan started to form. Not revenge, just truth. Cold, clean, undeniable truth. And Christmas was as good a day as any to unwrap it. I drove back up the driveway. Yep, right back into the lion's den. Inside the house, I could hear laughter forced, brittle, the kind people use to cover tension. Music played softly. Someone clinked a glass. I opened the front door. The warmth hit me first, followed by 30 pairs of eyes swiveling toward me, like I'd just crashed the Oscars. Diane looked stunned for half a second, then plastered on her fake smile. Oh, you're back. Did you forget something on the porch? A few people snickered. I shut the door behind me. Yeah, I said calmly. Actually, I did. Dad turned from the fireplace, scotch in hand. Harper, what now? I thought you left. I did, I said, walking further into the room. But I realized something important. And what's that?
He demanded, looking annoyed I was ruining his Christmas ambiance.
That I don't need to tolerate being humiliated in my own home. The room went quiet. Dad blinked. You're what? I pulled out my phone, opened the PDF, and held it up. My home, Dad. The house you said you were going to sell. A ripple of uneasy whispering broke through the crowd. Dad's forehead wrinkled. What are you talking about? I stepped closer, voice steady. The Lane Estate Trust, remember that little stack of papers you signed at the lawyer's office after your heart scare? His face drained a shade. Yeah, I continued. Those weren't power of attorney documents like you thought. They were title transfer documents. He scoffed. What? That's ridiculous. I never... You did. My voice was firm now. And the county recorded it. This house legally belongs to me. It has for 5 years. Silence. The kind that swallows a room whole. Cousin Mallory gasped. Jennifer started recording, of course. Someone dropped a fork. Ethan stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Dad stepped forward. That's a lie. No, Dad, I said softly. It's the truth you forgot. And oh, did the truth hurt? Diane's face twisted. Harper, stop this nonsense. Richard owns this house. I turned the screen so she could see. She squinted, then froze. Dad snatched the phone from my hand, scrolling with trembling fingers. No, this can't be. It's real, I said. You signed it. You gave me the house. You just never cared enough to remember. He looked like the room spun beneath him. You can't.
He started. Oh, I can, I said calmly.
And you should also know something else. I took a slow breath. I'm increasing the homeowner's insurance premium next month. People blinked. And I'm updating the occupancy rules. More blinking. Dad frowned. What are you saying? I looked straight into his eyes. I'm saying you don't get to throw me out of my own house. Then I let the next line drop like a grenade. And if anyone's getting kicked out tonight, it's you! Gasps, shouts. Diane swore under her breath. Dad stared at me, stunned, furious, confused, scared. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of him. Not even a little. The room erupted in noise the moment the words left my mouth. Some relatives whispered loudly, others gasped. And a few, mostly the cousins who'd always treated me decently, just stared, wide-eyed, like they'd been waiting years for this moment. Diane recovered first. You can't kick your father out of his own home, she snapped, stepping toward me like she wanted to snatch the phone out of my hand. It's my home, I corrected, calm as the snow still falling outside.
Legally, financially, in every way that matters, Dad's.
Face had gone stiff as if frozen in a way the cold outside could never achieve. You tricked me, he said through clenched teeth. No, I replied quietly. You ignored me. You treated signing legal documents like signing a grocery list? That's on you, Dad. Ethan stepped forward slowly, eyes moving between us. Dad. Is it true? Did you really sign the house over? Dad snapped at him. Stay out of this, Ethan. Why? I asked. So you can keep lying? Keep pretending you didn't bulldoze me into a heart attack of your own? The room stilled. Dad stiffened. Don't you dare play the victim card. I almost laughed. I'm not playing anything. I'm just done letting you rewrite the story. One of Diane's friends whispered loudly. This is so trashy. Can't they fight in private? Jennifer, my cousin, who live streams everything for clout, zoomed her phone closer. I turned to her. Hey, Jun. If you upload that, I'll send a copy of your fake charity invoices to every donor on your little influencer list. Her phone dropped so fast I thought it'd break. Moving on, I said. Dad slammed his drink onto the marble counter, golden scotch splattering across the white stone. You think owning a house gives you power? You think that means you can talk to me like this? No, I said. Owning the house just stops you from talking to me like I'm disposable. Diane folded her arms. Richard, she's bluffing. She's always bluffing. She's probably lying like usual. Check the county records, I said. Go ahead. I'll wait. A few relatives actually pulled out their phones. I watched them squint, scroll, then look at one another. Whispers broke out. Oh my God, she's really the owner. It's been in her name for years? Did he seriously give away a home worth this much? This is insane. Dad took a step closer, his face red. You ungrateful. Don't, I warned quietly. Don't you dare say I'm ungrateful. Not tonight. He froze mid-sentence. I kept going. You threw my Christmas gifts into the snow like trash. You mocked my job. You treated me like a stain on your perfect holiday. But you didn't even pay for this roof. I did. You didn't pay, Diane began. I paid with patience. With silence. With moving out when you wanted me gone, then moving back when you called me a duty. I paid with your hospital bills, Dad. Made me cover when Diane didn't want to dip into her spa fund. I paid with peace of mind you three never gave me. Silence wrapped around the room, tight like a vice. Ethan whispered, Harper. I didn't know any of this. I gave him a weary smile. You weren't supposed to. They'd rather let you believe I just coasted through life. Dad finally exploded. Enough. This is a family Christmas, not your stage for some dramatic pity party. He gestured to the guests. Everyone, ignore her. She's clearly having one of her emotional episodes. I raised my hand. Dad, stop. Something in my tone snapped the air in half. You want everyone to ignore me? I said, fine. But first, they should know why you're suddenly talking about selling your house. The room leaned in. Dad clenched his jaw. Harper, don't you... You're broke, gasps. A glass shattered somewhere behind me. Diane went paper white. Dad sputtered. That is absolutely. Don't lie, I said softly. Not now. I turned to the guests. Dad drained his retirement account twice. Diane's credit cards are months past due. The business deal he bragged about last summer, it fell through. They're behind on taxes and the bank already sent a warning letter. Someone whispered, Jesus. Another muttered, that's bad. Dad stepped toward me, face contorting. You don't know anything. Oh, I know everything, I said. I saw the foreclosure notice on your desk last week. A collective gasp rolled through the room in one heavy wave. Diane pressed a hand to her chest. Richard, you told me that was a mistake. You told me everything was fine. Dad looked trapped, cornered, exposed. It was supposed to be temporary, he snapped. We just needed to sell some things and... You were going to sell my house, his mouth opened. Then closed. For the first time, he looked speechless. I took a breath and said the line I've been holding since the moment he shoved me into the snow. You don't get to throw out the only person who actually saved you. Dad's mouth opened and closed like he was grasping for words that didn't exist. Diane finally found hers. You mean to tell me, she said, voice trembling, that we've been hosting Christmas in a house we don't even own? And you were planning to sell it without telling me? Dad shot her a sharp look. Diane, calm down. It's not what it looks like. It looks, she snapped, like you've been lying to me for months. Relatives murmured. Some shook their heads. Others avoided eye contact entirely. The air was thick like everyone had been holding their breath since my name got tossed into the snow, and now they finally exhaled. Dad pointed at me, face twisted in anger. You did this! You embarrassed me in front of my family. Dad, I said quietly, you embarrassed yourself the moment you shoved my gifts into the snow. Someone near the back muttered. I still can't believe that happened. Dad slammed his hand on the table. I am your father. You don't talk to me like... No, I cut in. You don't talk to me the way you did. Not anymore. The room went still. I stepped forward, voice steady. You shoved me out into the cold like I wasn't part of this family. You let people laugh at me. You called me useless, lazy, a disappointment. All while living in a house you didn't even pay for, Dad scoffed. You want a medal for signing some papers? You think that gives you power? No, I said, holding my phone. But the new ownership documents do. And the notice sitting on the hall table. Diane blinked. Notice? I turned to her and didn't sugarcoat a thing. It's an eviction notice, she gasped. Actually stumbled back like I'd physically shoved her. Dad barked. You can't evict us. We've lived here for 10 years. There are rights, laws? Yes, I said, nodding. Household tenants with no lease have a timeline. 30 days. You're insane, Dad spat. No, I said, voice calm but razor sharp. I'm done. Ethan stepped toward me slowly. Harper, you're not seriously throwing Dad out of his own house on Christmas, are you? I met his eyes gently. Ethan wasn't the villain. He just grew up believing Dad's version of me. I'm not throwing him out for Christmas, I said. He has a month to figure out housing. I'm doing what he did to me, except I'm giving him more notice and more respect than he ever gave me. Ethan swallowed hard. Harper, can't we talk about this? We'll talk, I said softly, but not tonight. Tonight I'm done being humiliated in my own home. Dad laughed a sharp, ugly sound. Your own home? You didn't earn a dime of this, not one. Everything you've touched your whole life came from me. I had to close my eyes for a moment at that. When I opened them, the anger was gone. Only truth remained. I earned my peace, I said quietly. I earned my boundaries. I earned the right to not be treated like garbage just because I don't fit your idea of success. He shook his head. Where will we go, huh? You want your father homeless? I set my jaw. You kicked me out on Christmas. You shoved my things into the snow. You didn't care where I slept that night.
He took a breath, about to argue, but I raised a hand.
I'm not heartless, I'm not you. But I'm not your doormat anymore either. Diane crossed her arms. We're not leaving. You can't force us. I walked to the front door. Opened it. Cold air swept in crisp, sharp, honest. You can leave tonight if pride pushes you, I said. Or you can stay and plan your next move. But understand this clearly. I turned back to face Dad. You're done treating me like the outsider in this house. Silence. Then something unexpected happened. Grandma Rose, who'd barely spoken all night, slowly wheeled her chair forward. Her voice was soft, but every syllable carried more weight than anything Dad had said. Harper, sweetheart, I'm proud of you. Dad stiffened. Mom. She lifted a hand and he fell silent. For years I watched you tear her down, Richard, she said. You bullied your own daughter to feel taller. You mocked her instead of helping her. You don't get to cry victim now. Dad looked shocked, truly shocked. Grandma turned to me. Your mother would have loved who you've become. That nearly broke me. I knelt beside her and she squeezed my hand. You enforce those boundaries. And don't you dare apologize for reclaiming what's yours. Dad looked around the room and saw that almost no one was on his side. Diane sputtered. We have nowhere to go. That's not my responsibility, I said gently. But I suggest saving the money you are going to spend on the country club gala. Relatives began gathering their coats, murmuring awkward goodbyes, pretending to check their phones. Dad stood there trembling not from cold, but from the realization that he'd lost the one person who ever gave him unconditional loyalty. He stepped toward me, eyes hard. You'll regret this. I met his glare with a calm he'd never seen in me before. No, I said. I'll finally sleep. He stormed out into the snow. Diane followed, complaining loudly. Ethan stayed behind, uncertain, hurting. But me? For the first time in my life, I wasn't cold.